Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Today I'm talking about the smartphone-based experience sampling method study of leisure and life worth living. Unfortunately, second author Dr. Eiji Ito from Japan could not make it here, but we have third author Jinjin Gui from the University of Alberta, Canada, right there. And this study has been funded by Sasakawa Sports Foundation. So leisure and well-being, we don't have to talk about that for folks who, you love leisure, that's why you're studying and doing properly. It makes us happy. Research has shown that leisure participation is positively, strongly, robustly, positively correlated with the subjective well-being. Recently, Gordon Walker and I tried to show this relationship and explain why this relationship exists in terms of self-determination theory. And this recent meta-analysis summarized dozens of studies and confirmed this positive correlation. But when it comes to subjective well-being, the research on happiness and well-being has suggested that there may be actually different kinds. Maybe we're talking about apples and oranges. The first kind is traditionally studied well-being. It's called, now we call hedonic well-being, or pleasant life that feels good. We operationalize it, measure it as happiness and positive emotion archetype. The emerging new type of well-being is now we call eudaimonic well-being. If you read Aristotle's work, he uses eudaimonia or daimon and those notions, and we're going back to that. But basically, it's about good life, whatever the definition is. And we use it, for example, virtuous characters, flow experience, and self-expressiveness, and purposeful and meaningful life as an indicator of eudaimonic well-being. Now we're talking about leisure and eudaimonic well-being. Not so much has been done about this topic because a lot of research has focused more on the hedonic side by using happiness and their life satisfaction, often than positive emotion. And one of the eudaimonic well-being concept is called ikigai, or Japanese word for life worth living. And everything in Japanese sounds just so nice. And now you're thinking about what is ikigai? Tell me about it. I'll tell you. It's a single Japanese word that allows us to access centuries of lived experience around life worth living. And it's one word, and it says it all for those people over there. And it's cross-culturally applicable phenomenon. As a phenomenon, experience of life worth living. We all want that, probably. Even despite we don't have that word of, ikigai in English. Theoretically, though, it's associated with the significance or the most understudied aspect of meaning in life, which is a rich body of literature. And lastly, practically, it has been found by, based on a longitudinal study, that it's actually a predictor of longevity, like a longer life, as well as better functioning. So you can live better and longer, actually. So it's cross-culturally important, it's theoretically interesting, and it's practically useful concept. That's what the ikigai is. When it comes to leisure and ikigai, I've studied this topic over the past 5 years or so, and some of the papers are there. One thing that I found, enjoyment and effort through leisure experience. You're talking about casual, maybe serious leisure, and a balancing between enjoyment and effort is very important correlate of ikigai. But other aspect of leisure experience has been very much understudied in relation to ikigai or many other eudaimonic well-being. So that's what we're trying to do here in this presentation today. The purpose of research here today is to examine whether key leisure psychological experience. And we're going to go back to the page chapter 2 of your leisure textbook. Let's look at the perceived freedom. Let's look at intrinsic motivation. We're talking about the new leisure paradigm thing, if you will. Do they correlate to the ikigai feeling, a feeling of life worth living at the experience level, like every day? Now, if I ask you, do they correlate each other? And longitudinally, do those perceived freedom, intrinsic motivation is considered as a leisure experience? Do they predict your next day? So if you feel free now, do you feel your life is worth it tomorrow? Because that probably is important practically as well as theoretically. So can we predict that? We ask these questions because we use a method called an experience sampling method. It's been in our field a long time, since 70s, 80s definitely. Traditionally, we use a beeper, one of those watch kind of thing, and it goes like randomly beep, beep. And when you get beep, you have to take out a stack of paper, questionnaire, and you have to write. But the question is, who wants to do that? Right? You don't want to print the beeper and stack of paper. So instead, we use. Now I don't have it because I'm video camera by my phone over there, but smartphone, because everybody has it and everybody takes it to everyone, right? Think about your students. So we use that and a specifically online ESM service provided by a company called LifeGator and their smartphone application. And instead of me talking about it, I will show you a quick video about what it does. Come on. And audio is going to come from the computer.
The app is available for free and allows any mobile user to interact with content created by customers. Users download life packs within the app and begin interacting with the content that's been created for them. Notifications fire just like they do for text messages and other apps. And users can swipe on the banner to immediately access questions waiting for them. Users then respond to the questions. Here you'll see the 2 symptom questions we demonstrated a minute ago. So the user can rate their level of dizziness and their level of fatigue. Once the mobile user has completed their questions, the data is automatically sent to the server where customers can view the data using our real-time dashboard. The data dashboard is completely customizable, allowing customers to decide what kinds of user responses they want to track in real time. Here you can see a couple of gauges showing levels of dizziness and fatigue. This kind of real-time data gathering is not possible with surveys, and the line graphs capture trends throughout the day and week, something surveys cannot do because they're only administered once. In addition to the data dashboard, we also provide direct data download so that researchers can download their data in various formats and then analyze that data in Excel,
so you see a lot of
or with other more advanced statistical software programs. The Life Data System is all about delivering questions and interventions in the moment. While traditional surveys will continue to play an important role in research, increasingly, people are learning to say goodbye to surveys and embracing a system that harnesses the power of real-time assessment and intervention.
Oh, right. So I hope that gave you some idea of what that is. And I'm going to go back to my presentation. There you go. So that's exactly what we did. There you go. And in terms of our study, smartphone-based ESM, we had a sample of 83 Japanese university students. Again, those are the people who speak EGI as a language. And we set 7 2-hour blocks from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And students were asked to complete a short, very, very short questionnaire randomly once within each of those 2-hour block for 1 week. So we collected maximum 7 questionnaires per day, 7 days, times 83 students, and that will be about 4,000 surveys that are just basically fired, sent out. And each student had to respond within a 30-minute deadline, and we got a total of over 2,200 usable questionnaires for this study. So response rate was a little above 54%. So this is one of the issues that I want to come back in terms of methodological issues and the lessons. Oh, sorry. There you go. These are pictures of orientation, because this is kind of a complicated process I have to explain to my research participants. This is a picture of first session. We had a 40 student. That was a big class. And this is one of the subsequent orientation session where we had a smaller group of students. Students were explaining about application, how to download, how to use, and we actually went through one of the practice round with them. And we did demographic questionnaire. And there's definitely, now that I think about it, issue of orientation size in terms of management. And I'm going to, again, another point, methodological point that I wanted to come back a little later. In terms of instruments, we have to make ESM survey very short to keep the data quality really high. So first thing we asked was respondents' views of their activity, what they're doing right now as a leisure or free time activity in Japanese, or not. Yes or no, binary. Secondly, we use a single IQ scales for freedom, perceived freedom, and intrinsic motivation adopted from Manel's work from 0 to 10, and finally another 0 to 10 single item scale for Ikigai life worth living. Very simple. And for analysis, we use a multi-level linear modeling MLM using a software called HLM7. And as data are nested, what do I mean? Basically, we got a maximum of 49 experience from you. But it's impossible to assume those experiences are independent of each other because it's all coming from you, right? It's tied up to you. So the data are nested. That's what we mean by data are nested. We had 83 students like that. So data are hierarchical. That this approach was appropriate for such kind of data. And if you speak statistics, and I'm looking at the Ryan and a few other people, these are expression at what is called level 1, experience level equation. And if you do not understand the equation, that's fine because I will break it down later. For individual level, I had individual variables such as age and gender because those are not the variable that changes from experience to experience. No, I don't age over the next day, basically, unless I have a birthday. So basically, those are individual level factors. And then finally, this is interesting, we conducted what is called cross-lagged MLM analysis, basically which was collapsing and averaging experience level into day level, right? And in the data set, we had our current days of variables, Ikigai, motivation, freedom, leisure. But we also had past day, the previous days, all those variables as well. So we can predict, based on the past day's freedom or motivation, we can predict current day, so next day's Ikigai, or the feeling of life worth living. So that was our research question 2. This is a characteristic of our sample. We had a mixture of male and female, different academic studies, and their average age was about 20. Very typical university students in Japan. And this is the main finding. First, let's start with the individual level. The dependent variable is the feeling of life worth living on the day, at the moment, actually, experience level. Gender, age did not have any impact right here. It's not significant. However, experience level variable were all significant. So, starting from the top, if you got a B, and if you consider what you're doing as free time or leisure activity, you're more likely to feel that your life was worth living at the moment. And perceived freedom is saying too, that if you're pursuing higher level of freedom, you're more likely to feel that your life was worth living too. Positive. Yeah, intrinsic motivation, the same thing for intrinsic motivation, but if you see the coefficient, it seems that it's about 3 times this one. Intrinsic motivation is more powerful in terms of association. That's an interesting point that I'll come back. We also had what is called cross-level interaction, which is interaction between these two, or if you like the word moderation, that works too. None of them was significant. So that was experience level. It's correlation, basically. But then now, what about longitudinal? And longitudinal in the sense that from previous day to the next day. Can we predict based on whether you had a leisure activity on the previous day and how much perceived freedom you had on the previous day on average, and intrinsic motivation as well as the Ikigai level of the past day? Can we predict based on that today's your feeling of life worth living? Nope. It's very one of those set moments, and I have to be true to the findings that no, there's no significant relationship whatsoever here. So, in terms of research purpose, first thing we asked was this: do perceived freedom and intrinsic motivation correlate to Ikigai, or feeling of life worth living, at the experience level? Yes, and possibly. Even after controlling for the effect of students considering each activity as leisure or not. So I would say it's a robust finding. Yet, interestingly, intrinsic motivation seems to be a little more powerful than perceived freedom. Why is that? Maybe things that are not necessarily freely chosen. Maybe you're doing like, I don't feel like it, but I'm doing because I know it has to be done. And I agree with the value of whatever the activity might be. Volunteer work, for example, I don't feel like I'm freely choosing because my school wants me to do it, but I know this is helping other people maybe. And that's what, for example, Rich Ryan and those self-determination people are recently advocating. They increase eudaimonic well-being, maybe. What about longitudinal fighting? Do you perceive freedom and intrinsic motivation on a given day, predict next day's ikigai feeling? No. And my face was literally like this. Definitely. No. Let me try again. No. Well, why? Well, perhaps having too much freedom or intrinsic motivation is not necessarily psychologically good. I mean, think about it. You had such a, I shouldn't say lazy, free Sunday, and you feel so guilty maybe next day. Maybe there's somewhere in the middle, optimum freedom, maybe. And maybe we should study different types of psychological experience that is common during leisure, such as need satisfaction or serious leisure, which we showed elsewhere that are correlated to ikigai and eudaimonic well-being. So now we're getting to the most interesting point. Methodological insight and lessons that we learn about smartphone-based ESM. And one of the things that I'm pretty sure you're wondering is, hey, I want to know about those smart, applications and softwares, right? Right, I see. Okay, this. So, there is a table. Somebody summarized all the available smartphone-based experience sampling method platforms. There. When I did this research, got a grant and everything, there was not this publication. Darn it. But now they do. So I did use this. And Life Data, the company we use right here. So some of them are free actually, so that's great, right? Some of them are open source, which means if you're, tech savvy, not like me, you can tweak the program in a way that helps your research purpose. Another thing that made interesting leisure scholar is this, which is accelerometer. So your phone has accelerometer, most of them. So if you're interested in physical activity, sedentary life, you can get those very objective activity data accelerometer as well, and correlate that with our psychometrics, for example. There's another one, it's called an Experience Sampler, which is also another ESM platform, which was not in the other table. It's a free, open source, and there's a publication on it too. So it seems to have good support as well. Orientation was the issue. The first session I had 50 to 40 students. That was so many, and it was just out of control anymore. But next sessions, we had 6 to 10 people maximum. Each session, it was manageable, and I could build some level of relationship, which I found was probably important, that those students actually went through a week of getting beeped and doing survey, because those students knew us a little bit better, said, okay, for those guys, I would do it probably. That was important probably. And I could clarify questions better. And response rate management, that was one thing we tried. And the strategy we used was this. We used a group chat. It's called Line in Japan, but it's basically Messenger. And we had everybody, 83 students in one thread. And every day, I shoot average response rate for everybody, so to kind of cheer up everybody and increase the morale. Hey, let's bring this number up to 60s or 70s tomorrow. Did it work? Maybe. It helped a little bit. It helped not declining so radically, I think. Another idea, another possible method we thought about, we didn't use, was this. Give compensation, we gave $30. Only when people achieve certain response rate. It's possible. I don't know, your IRB does allow it or not. Another issue is if people are like 60% toward the end of the study, they're not going to make it, and when they feel so, they're going to probably drop out completely. Do you want to risk it? So there are considerations, but it's worth trying, potentially. Limitations, yes, yes, yes. And they were attached to ESM, and we're not sorry for that, but that's there. And finally, future direction, we have to examine leisure's relationship with both eudaimonic and hedonic well-being at the same time, because that's the well-being research is going. We kind of have to catch up with that. As a group of international researchers, we're very interested in a cross-cultural ESM study, although it's kind of logistically difficult. And finally, an ESM study with a different time span. What about months, over months, not 1 week? Of course, we're not going to beep everybody every day over 4 months, but every week maybe. How does that look like? Another potentially different design. One of the unique functions I learned was basically syncing function. Let's say we're studying couples or parent and children. We can sync your ESM and your ESM, so when you get beeped, his will get beeped too. So that you can get data that are connected among, for example, couple or the parent, family. It's great for, it's called a dyad data basically. It's great for family researcher. And really this method, and especially smartphone-based ESM, opens up a new question of when leisure relates to well-being. Not just whether, when, or where, because GIS information, where, or with whom leisure relates to well-being. And it really, those are the questions that we haven't really addressed yet. But with this real-time data, we get to do that. So those are very exciting new directions. Thank you for listening, and this is a list of us, and thanks for finding. How was I? 15 minutes. Can I go for Q&A, by the way? That's the front, right?
Hi, yes, thank you so much for sharing the study. A couple of questions methodologically, yes. And I'm sorry if you said it and I missed them. One, you expressed interest in cross-cultural validity of this, and I didn't hear mention of assessing the cross-cultural validity of those perceived freedom, intrinsic motivation items. Did you happen to get a chance to do that, or?
That's a great question, and what we did basically was we made sure at the level of translation, so the semantic equality was the semantic equality of the question. Very simple because each one was just one scale. So we, Japanese version was actually originally Japanese. So there you go. That's good.
Right.
Yeah. The perceived freedom, intrinsic motivation coming from Roger Manel study, so that was English. So we use a professional translator in both English and Japanese, and let's go to back translation, which is always, we did. But is that good enough? That's a different question. We did, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And just one follow-up and then a plug for Minnesota.
Yes.
So the follow-up relates to the lack of relationship you saw in your second research question.
Yes.
And you mentioned you had a whole bunch of data. I wondered if you had the length of time they were engaged in said leisure activity, or if it was just I participate, I don't. And then the endurance of that experience and how that might carry over.
Very good question. I got that question recently from somebody. No, I didn't have that question around how long you were doing that. In hindsight, should have.
Sure,
yes.
right.
But I did.
Next study.
Yes, next study. There you go. Always.
And then finally, just a flag for another database or another app that was recently developed at the University of Minnesota called Daynamica. Daynimaca, and it has all these capabilities plus the transport stuff.
Right.
So it wasn't on that list.
That sounds great.
So, can you remind me, so when you collect the data from the undergrads, when did you collect it, like during the semester? Was it, because I'm thinking like it wouldn't matter if like they did it the week before midterms or something.
Fabulous question. And because of funding and limited, it has to be done, the research has to be done within a year. And if you get a grant, how difficult that might be, literally. It was 2 weeks before the final exam. So that was concerning. So we had to do during this time because I was traveling from States to Japan and doing all the pulling up. I'm not going to, spend another 2,000 hours going back to Japan. So what we did was 2 weeks before exam was concerned. So we disproportionately sampled a little more senior students, 30 and 4th year, because they tend not to have a final exam in the Japanese system.
Was it, so I don't know, was it autumn and spring?
It's called spring in Japan, yes, the end of spring semester. But there are only 2 semesters in Japan, yes. Great question.
Sorry. So like it was predominantly seniors, right? Juniors and seniors?
About half, 40 students were senior,
okay.
And there were 40 junior students.
Potentially there's a selection issue, right? Because if less seniors, they're like done, they're checking out,
True.
Right? So they may have more time to engage in activities. They might be happier because they're graduating.
True.
Right? So it'd be interesting in terms of future study to look at the.
Although they're not graduating, because it's the we graduated in March.
Okay, got it. So So
that was done in the summer. So.
Got it. Okay.
Anybody except Ryan? Yes, of course, Ryan. Ryan and probably.
Hey, Bob. So missing data, power.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how does missing data? Because your response rate seems fine, but the power thing is the thing I wasn't able to navigate. Nor like when you have a missing data point, it's not random necessarily because they opted not to take it.
Especially in a nested data, I think, the same people are missing data.
Yeah.
And they kind of exacerbate because, the same people missing whole day. So that's a whole thing. For this analysis, I have to just basically use most of what we have. And potentially what we could.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
With multi-level modeling, missing data is not typically considered to be a problem.
Right, exactly. Software-wise, and it does, it runs, okay, in terms of running, and you can correct me, but the fact that software runs doesn't mean that it's not influenced by the missing information and how we're addressing it. Am I correct? And you want to?
I think that's correct, but it depends on whether you're looking at the experience or whether you're looking at level 1 or level 2.
Right.
And so then you're aggregating, you're looking at averages. So I've never heard anyone say, and I have limited experience, but I haven't heard that the consistent patterns of missing data would be indicative of other things, although certainly it might be.
Definitely. And we could make potentially possible analysis of who missing and what would it be, and by making a basically dummy variable around that too, potentially. And I actually tried to look for information around missing variable issues as well as some of the replacement issue potentially around multi-level modeling, and I realized, and I'm still new to this analysis, and I was surprised how less and little was written about it. So I would be very much appreciative if you can guide me toward those documents as well. But I could find actually only one paper who was talking about, what was it? It was missing value, I think, treatment or identification within a specific context of multi-level modeling, which I could understand as in not that's another person per se. So, but I would appreciate any references around that. How's that? Yes, please.
I'm wondering, you were talking about we can look at when, where, how leisure is linked to well-being.
Yeah.
And about some of those software applications that you shared, you said that you can get location data.
Location data, that's a good broad category. We could, for example, ask where. Just straightforward, where are you? But also we can get a GIS data.
I'm just wondering if I were to use this, if I wanted to follow my participants around, can you use this software? Is it a one-time, you get, they drop a pen, or it gives you where they are at that very moment? Or does the app constantly run to where you can follow them around?
It would depend on app. Well, it's basically usually when the app was activated. Basically, okay. Not all the time.
Okay.
At least for the particular software we use.
Okay.
Different software may have different times.
Sure.
And also, you have to ask people usually to activate the GIS function.
Yes.
Of their phone. So don't forget that, because otherwise you get 0 over there.
Right.
So we did that too. So yes, that's objective data. Every notification, every survey response, but not every time, every moment.
I mean, it opens up a lot of possibilities about understanding those linkages, exactly. And I think it's really cool.
Where people are, what kind of leisure activity are leads to well-being,
right.
And what type of well-being. So that's really give us really interesting microscopic insight around this just general, leisure relates to well-being. No, but really exactly how, where, when, with whom, and all that kind of question.
Do you know, does the accelerometer data stay on in the background the whole time? Yeah, do you know if it does?
Do I know?
Yeah, does it?
I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff's really cool if it would stay on, but I understand that there's issues with big brothering someone. And
I don't know.
No, not at all.
So we did it with Fitbits this last year. So we had 100 Fitbits, and it accidentally gave us all of their location data. So we did not request it, but I could find out where every kid went to the address level. And when you buy from Fitabase, that's where we got our data from, and we gave them the Fitbits, it gives you everything. It doesn't lock you out of a certain part. So we can
24 hours.
Yeah, and their social media, everything. And so you can find out where they're logging in, where they're making purchases, and that sort of thing too. And so for IRB, we just intentionally masked it from ourselves, but I have it all. And so that's the part there is, I don't know how to get around IRB for youth, for example, or whatever it is. And that's the part that I think is cooler. Actually, is real behavior versus perceived behavior.
Or, analyzing both of them at the same time and understanding how real behavior and perceived behavior sometimes interact or clash or
Well, if you could get a true score, right? Like, let's just say that you could find an actual score of that person, like, you know, like you enter error into the score that they give you on real behavior, then eventually you wouldn't have to do the app if you could get to that. Like, because you're using prediction anyways, and so that's all a prediction is guessing future behavior based on past evidence, and so that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that we definitely want that real behavior where we can have an objective measure, but there's something to be said about also subjective behaviors or perceived behaviors, because I think that tells us a lot about the leisure experience.
Oh, that's what I mean, is like the perceived, like you can get the perceived based on the objective, like you get the dyads or whatever it's called. But the power thing is the thing I still don't understand.
Power. Okay. No, that was actually a power issue. Sorry, the paper I was thinking about was power and a multi-level modeling and sample size issue, of course, because it was priori, you know, a priori sample size issue. A lot of people use some of the outdated rule of thumb. For example, you need at least 50-30 at the level 2, I mean individual or organizational level, depending on research context. I mean, it could help, but at the, you know, if you want to do really good research, I mean, I don't think that's a good idea, really. There was one paper, and I would love to show it to you. Maybe you already know it. Benefit of ESM and also the power issue in a multi-level modeling I read was that basically usually the issue reside in a level 2, individual level. Because usually it's done in an organizational level, so you get organization within that they're individual, right? So it's really costly for researchers to get like 100 organizations rather than 100 individual or 1,000 individual in each organization. So you should reside at getting that level 2 or higher level sample size up to get enough power. The beauty of ESM is that that's actually, individual is a level 2, bigger level, and experience is at the bottom level. So we can kind of boost up the level 2 by recruiting just people. So that was great. But also the issue was level 1 now, because flip side is if you bother people like hundreds of times, they're not going to like you. And in data quality, what's going to happen to data quality too? So we have to think about that. And we have to make a conscious and mindful decision on, let's not bother people over 50 times. That's a lot of time.
How much does it cost per user for that?
That was, we were creative. So we use a student, because one of our team was a student, so we use a student license, and 100 people, 100 days, no. Half a year, 100 people, it was, I want to say, $1,500. It's not a bad deal, but it's not cheap either. Especially you don't have any students. That will be like over $2,500 probably.
And so that data looked really nasty the way it exported to. What issues did you
It was actually, well, I would say you can download it in a different way, and it was not so nasty. And it downloaded some of the key variable GIS too, but also when each notification, each questionnaire was which order of each person, there was some. But also I have to be honest that my colleague Jin Gui did a lot of data management because it's connected, nested. It's really difficult for me to manage for 2,000 situation. So you can talk to her. But my time is up. So I'm going to give up. I'm going to stop right here.